What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, your cousin, Tanisha Peoples, live with another TDRS, along with my brother, my partner in good trouble, Mr. Jason B. Allen. And today we are missing Neo because he's out, doing the work as always. So shout out to Neo. But we are the trio that talks that real shit. And today joining us is Mr. Zach Wright, repping the greater Philadelphia, Philly, Collinswood, repping, the East Coast. Zach is repping today. How y'all feeling?
It's a good Monday. I love Mondays.
Really?
I really do. That's the teacher in me. It's like, okay, this is how I'm starting. If I don't start it off strong, if I don't start it off right, then it's going to be, a difficult week. So I love Monday. It's the start to the actual work week. Now Sunday is the start of the week to me, but I'm resting, and that's my day of, my day of peace.
Yeah. How you feeling, Zach?
I'm feeling good. I like Mondays. That's when the kids go back to school after a weekend. So I'm ready to have them go. But I'm feeling good. I am honored to be on this program. So just thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we know how much we love you, Zach, and it's been a long time coming, but you're here, and we're glad that you are here. Before we even get into what happened, anything that happened over the weekend, I want to send some love and peace to our sister Gwen Samuel, who tragically lost her son a couple of days ago. Sis, just letting you know that TDRS fam, activist fam all around the country are with you. We're praying for you. We love you, and anything that you need, we got you. So take care of yourself, sister. We got you here in spirit.
This is her second child, actually. And it was really, it was devastating. When I saw it, I was devastated by it, as you can definitely see, still at a loss for words. But it's difficult, to see parents lose a child at any age. It's definitely very difficult. It's out of the traditional norm of transition, and cycle of life. So I'm definitely sending prayers to her.
Yeah. But Zach, did you want to say something?
I did. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And there's nothing to say.
Yeah. I can't imagine. I have a friend here in Chicago who is an activist, particularly against, intracommunal violence. And he lost his son to gun violence, and so I can't imagine being an activist who's fighting for our youth. And, regardless of how you lose a child, you lost a child while you're fighting for, your kids and other kids. So I can't imagine. So, I just, along with Gwen, I want to send love to everyone that has lost a child fighting for children in this country. It's tough, and I couldn't imagine. So, sending y'all love and peace during this time and in the future, for the past, all that good stuff. So what happened over the weekend, y'all? I know that the series on Amazon came out, The Underground Railroad, which is based off of a book. And I started watching it last night, and I'm enjoying it so far, especially in a time where there's so much trauma porn. It's like everybody want to be woke, but y'all too damn woke. And in that being woke, y'all traumatizing the hell out of us, just trying to make some shit that's profound, but really it's just like y'all doing too much. But I think that this series, so far is great as far as the visuals and the telling of history and just the storyline, because it's not just about it's giving me Lovecraft Country, it's giving me Get Out a little bit, like it's giving me so many elements that's really contributing to a great storyline along with the history. So what have y'all had a chance to check it out? Have y'all heard about it? What y'all think?
I've heard about it, definitely. I have not checked it out just yet. So, I'm looking forward to it. I was actually enjoying your commentary. So I said, okay, I definitely support the culture. So I'm always going to check out things to tell our stories in creative ways and innovative ways. So I'll pass the mic over to Zach to see if you wanted to answer. I wanted to throw something else out though.
I haven't seen the series, but I read the book and actually taught the book in high school when I was teaching high school, and the kids loved it because they loved like that magical realism twist of it, of like it being an actual train. And they love that like difference of it. And Colson Whitehead, the author, I've loved his writing for a long, long time. And he has a way of writing about, obviously not my culture, but in a way that's not trauma porn. He has a book called Stag Harbor, which is about like relatively affluent Black communities in Long Island, New York, and just growing up there. So he's got a really way of telling a different way of the story. So I'm looking forward to watching, but anything he writes, I'll read.
That's pretty cool. I need to check that out. Sis, I wanted to Kenya Barris announced over the weekend that Blackish will be ending this season that's coming up. It's the 8th season. And, you know, I love storytellers. I love Blackish for what it did. And, you know, it gave us Grownish and it gave us Mixedish, which I definitely love. My biracial students or triracial students, however you want to say it, they definitely feel like, okay, now it's something out there for me. And I think that's great for everyone to feel connected. So with a lot of shows that have been on for a while with, you know, predominant Black writers and creators and innovators, I think it opens up space for ABC and these other major networks to say, we don't just have to have one major show on one day. Like I would like to be able to say, okay, I can watch something every day of the week and feel like it's a major show that has the support of the network. And that's what equity looks like. That's what, you know, all this, we want to say we're supporting Black or Asian or Muslim or LGBTQ or whomever. You know, the list can go on. If we're definitely going to put up signs in our yards to say we're going to do it, then let's do it in every, you know, area, especially media. So I was a little bit sad to see it going, but you know, let's see what comes next, right? That opens up doors.
I didn't know I saw that I thought I saw that Mixedish was leaving and not Blackish.
No, I saw it's on. Well, no, I didn't see Mixedish. Now, I think Mixedish still has some stories that it could tell, right? But it definitely is Blackish. He has a post on Instagram that he made. They have a video and everything where they're talking about it. So, yeah. Now, I did throw this out there. You know, I commented on the post and tagged him, and I said, well, what about Twinish? Because what happens to the twin? Everyone else has their own show. You know, like the oldest brother, Junior, is on Grownish at times, so we'll still see him there. You know, Rainbow is Mixedish, is her life story, right? Oldish are the grandparents, and so it just leaves the twins with like, bye y'all, like we just have nothing for you. So I really hope they do something for them, because I think that would be pretty cool. You know, just putting that out there in the atmosphere. I think kids having stories to connect with are always good. Kids and teenagers.
I agree. And you know what? When just on that, because we go transition in a minute, but just thinking about that, like I have a new subscription, media subscription, because I'm trying to cut down on my bills. And so one of the channels, it's a few channels like Aspire, and they play like A Living Color and Family Matters and stuff like that. Now every time I watch these shows, and like Living Single, and I'm like, kids don't have those shows anymore with, you know, kind of positive representations of Black people, or I mean non-ratchet representations of Black people, and now everything is real housewives and, you know, real love and hip hop and all that stuff. And it's like, to have the presence of some show that shows Black people in a positive light is extremely important to, you know, to offset some of the other things that they see as representative of Black people in the media. And so we definitely got to advocate for these different shows that, again, represent us in a positive light, rather than, you know, just struggling all the damn time and fighting all the damn time, because that's definitely not us as a people. So I feel you, bro. Like all these spinoffs would be cute because we need it, especially for the kids.
And everybody doesn't have the same story.
Right.
So, you know, I always tell people, yes, I definitely elevate, everyone, even people who don't agree with me. I don't, just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean I want your voice to be silenced. I just want you to respect me in the way that you approach how you feel about my point of view. So, that's where we may have some confusion in regards to how it translates. But yeah, everyone's story is important. And I think that all stories should be told. I'll come back to that in a little bit because I have some interesting views, even around the Confederacy, right? And that story. So yeah, it'll come up in the conversation.
It will. So let's just get on into it, right? When we talk about people's stories being important, I think, that's particularly true for activist stories. And what we're seeing now is this ongoing attack of activism. And now they come in for journalistic activism, if that's even a thing, because I think that, it's just journalism in itself. And this came from last week. Neo, who runs Black Wall Street Times, posted a series of tweets in which someone asked the governor of Oklahoma if he was going to respond to journalists from the Black Wall Street Times around the Tulsa Race Commission. And he basically said, he basically brushed them off and said, I'm not talking to activists pretending to be journalists. And it's like, bruh.
Yeah, I saw that.
How disrespectful are you? Like, what the fuck? And these are people that will, get up there and they'll talk to any other media platforms. But when it comes down to media that tells the truth about people's lives and what's actually going on in these streets, they're brushed off or delegitimized and all that stuff. So I wish we had Neo here to talk about it, because I know that, obviously super passionate about it. It personally affects him, but, they basically, they're doing a lot of work in Tulsa. And, they basically getting in the governor's ass and whoever else's asses they're getting their way. So I wish we had him to talk about it, but it's cool. We go talk about it. How do y'all feel about that? Like, how do y'all feel about this attack on activism, particularly activists that are journalists and write about the real that's going on?
So I have two thoughts, right? And I'll be very quick. The first thought is I'm not shocked. Like, it's sound bites. Like, this man is very intelligent. We know he has resources. We know he understands what he's doing. So this shouldn't be a shock. Like, oh, my feelings are not hurt because I don't live there, but I support, our brother Neo, and I keep up with the Black Wall Street Times. And I've been watching this story unfold. So as someone who is definitely on the outside looking in, my heart goes out to them in the effort of what can we do? Like, I don't live there, but what can we do? Because it's very blatant racism that we don't care about you all. We're not going to do anything. We're going to continue the Jim Crow and the old boy way of you will be oppressed and be under us and work for us and not have any say so in what we do around decisions that impact your lives. And so it wasn't so much of what he said, it's his actions that disturbed me, because I'm like, this is really serious. Like, this is why the votes there are so suppressed. And I can imagine living there or, going to one of their, state universities and having to do research and study there. Like, my heart goes out to people that are almost trapped or in confinement, like the movie. So that's my thoughts. And I'll pass it over to Zach.
It's the same old play, right? It feels like it's the same old play of delegitimizing the voices you don't want to hear, right? So I remember when Obama was running, he was a community organizer, and they said that derisively, right? They said that as if that was a bad thing, right? But that's not real, right? So that's not real. But it's funny that the more things people say that seek to delegitimize, it only, to me at least, proves the very system that they're trying to say doesn't exist. So the whole thing is you're in activism, we don't talk to you. You're a community organizer, we don't talk to you. You kneel before the anthem, we don't talk to you. You march to you. The bottom line is you just don't want to listen to people who don't look like you. You don't want to listen to people that aren't white. You don't want to listen to people who want to change the power structure. It's the same old play. Now, the thing that irks me, and that's really just grinds you down, is that white folks fall for it. They fall for the fear play of the world will change and you will be left behind, and so you need to rally and come together into this white voting bloc, right? And it makes me think of caste, it makes me think of white fragility, all these things, and it largely works. And so I think where activism comes in, and again, I'm just speaking from my perspective, so where white activism comes into is to kind of cut through that noise and say, don't fall for that. Don't fall for that fear play that you think they speak for you, because they don't. You know, like it makes me think of like Chappelle had one of his Netflix things where he was online to vote, and he was saying how like the poor white people were like, Trump's going to vote for me, and Chappelle's like, I'm rich, he's going to work for me, right? And so it makes me think of that, like it's just the same old play. It's the same old racial play.
And Zach, that's one of the reasons why I wanted you particularly for this conversation, because when I think about activists who are in the journalism space, you came to mind, right? Because you tell the truth through your writing, and you do the on ground activism as well. And so, and not only the truth, but you speak to the white people. You speak to the white people about, hey, y'all, we got to have these conversations. We got to be real about this fragility. We got to be real about this privilege, and we got to be open to, not just open to, but open to having these conversations and acknowledge how our privilege creates obstacles and oppression, and so that's why I wanted you part of this conversation. So do you think that, or do y'all think that, let's just say the journalists for the Black Wall Street Times were white, do y'all think that the governor would have treated them differently, or would he still consider them just activists and not journalists?
No, it wouldn't. His actions would not have changed, and that is the reality. His actions would not have changed, and quite frankly, we don't need that to be a part of history where everyone does what's right and what's perfect, because we would never really have any true progress. So we need everybody to play their role, and that's his role. My question will always go back to, we know what his role is. Do people understand what their role is? Okay, you're either going to be working against what he's doing or for what he's doing. So your silence is either going to be helping or it's going to be hindering. He's got to do one of the two. And so people have to choose, okay, what side do I want to be on? In particular, the audiences that we're trying to reach. And this is, trying to frame my response in a way where, Zach can really speak to, we know that there are going to be white people who are not going to support progress at all. And, quite frankly, I don't have the time to try to reach them, because I don't have time to waste like that. But there are white allies, right, who we can reach. And so, I don't believe that everything in the revolution is going to be televised, but I do want to ask you this. What can we do to maybe, I guess, better identify people who can be allies, those who are moving into our communities? Gentrification is real. It's happening all over the nation. How can we better identify allies in our community so that we can help to, start to change some of the dynamics that are happening?
I know. So I got two things here. One, to Tanisha's question, would he have done the same thing? Probably, but he may not have felt as comfortable. He may not have felt as like, let me make this tweet extra visible. Like, cause the font was different and the background was different.
Yeah.
So it was very much like, not only do you not matter, but like you don't matter at all, to the point where I feel so comfortable, showing you how little I think of you. So that's the only thing I think might have been different. He may not have done that to someone who was white, but he definitely exposed how little he cares. Mm-hmm. Now, to Jason's question, my first thought was, it's not your job to find the white allies, right? Like, it's no one's job. Like, it's not the Black community's job to find the white allies, right? It's white allies to need to step up regardless. Like, this isn't an invitation.
Preach that.
Like, it's not your job to find us. It's our job to step up, right? So when I think about like my people, like my Jewish people, it's like, it's not like the Jewish people's job to find the good Nazi. Like, no, like it's it's the job of the, if you put a sign on your lawn, then you need to have some action to go with the sign, because the sign, it does show support, but it also soothes the ego. So if I put it out there and I don't act, I'm nothing. Right? I'm nothing, right? If I put my sign on the John and then don't try to actually advocate for some policy change, then you are actually centering your white guilt and doing nothing to actually help.
That's good.
So that's where I'm at. Like, I'm going to be straight up. Like, I don't want my kids' privileges to go away. I just want everyone's privileges to go up. I want everyone to have the same access. Right? Now, that might mean that privilege actually isn't the thing, because if everyone has it, is the privilege. I don't care. I want everyone to have access regardless. And that's where I'm at with it. But the thing that I think is really important is that I heard this comment from Sharif El-Mekki. I think it's from other places, but like, to the privileged, equity feels like oppression, right? So if I have 3/4 of the pizza pie and you want your half, I'm going to feel like you're coming from my, but it's like, no, that's not mine. That's not mine. I took that extra share. Yeah. Right? I took it.
Wow.
And I'll be just fine with half. So there's all those things. But to the point about, there are people who just don't care about non-white humanity. No time for them. I'm not here for hearts and minds with them. So if anybody has a job to reach out to them, it's people who look like me, right? But otherwise, like, I can't teach you how to care about someone. I can't.
Ooh.
Yeah, I love that. I think I love that, Zach. I think it's powerful. So, now I'm also messaging my students, since we have this space. I'm gonna just ask as much as I possibly can. So
wait.
Okay, but go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
I just want to shout Zach out, because I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard in my life, or in the time that I've been doing this work, a white person say that they don't want to relinquish their privilege. Like, I want to shout you out for that. Because that's real shit. It's like, who does? It's like, realistically, as an activist, like, I live comfortably, but if you ask me if I want to give all this up the way that I live, like, no, and nobody wants to give that up. But then white people, they'll be quick to attack it. I'm not privileged. I don't have it. And that goes along again with the when we talk about the critical race theory conversation and the fight in that, they're trying to really dismiss this fact that there's privilege and having those conversations in the classroom. And so I just want to shout Zach out for that. But then, Jason, going back to your question too about how do we embrace more allies or attract more allies, I agree with Zach. You're not gonna come here and this is I had this thought when I was in St. Louis. Like, my friends live in this gentrifying community in St. Louis, and I saw so many Black Lives Matter signs. I'm like, did these shits come in the mail? Like, how did everybody get the same sign? And then the next thought was like, how many people actually are, walking their talk around this Black Lives Matter while y'all got it posted up on y'all yards and windows and shit. And so to me, if you posting on social media or whatever the case, wherever you talking about Black Lives Matter, but I don't see receipts, you're not an ally. It's not enough to just claim that you're anti-racist. You gotta practice it. Or I don't believe it. I'm a person, it's like I start off at 100% trust with some people, but given the history of America, I don't trust y'all to do right. Y'all got to prove it to me. So y'all go start at 0 and work your way up to 100 until I see it. You're not an ally. You're not anti-racist, and I'm not hearing it. You're not Black Lives Matter. You're not. And so that's what I need to see. I need to see. And like Zach said, we shouldn't have to go out seeking allyship. We shouldn't. If you are truly about the liberation of Black people, come to us and show us.
Yeah, I'm building to something. I wanted to make sure that question was out there though. And we heard Zach's response, but I'm building to something. So I do want to go to this. In this work of activism, I'm so glad that Tanisha brought this up. There are still quite a few organizations. I'm just going to throw out examples. I'm not saying these organizations are doing it, but 50 Can, Teach for America, other large nonprofit organizations that are in the educational space. They are doing activist work or supporting innovation in schools or communities, et cetera, so forth. So here's my deal. If these boards that are controlling the money and are controlling the direction and the policies of these organizations don't have people of color, and not even that, if they don't have people who are impacted by the work or people who are doing the work, such as teachers or maybe organizers or strategic planners, or digital managers who are dealing with equity, right, to make sure that these spaces aren't repeating the same mistakes that we've seen throughout history. If there are white allies who are on these boards and they don't see that there is a seat for the very people that they're advocating for at the table, Zach, in all honesty, do you think that they will be willing to give up their seat for someone like a Tanisha, or someone like a Neo, or someone like Gwen, et cetera, so forth, any of the organizers that we may know, to be in that seat so that we can really influence and move policy and move funding and move support to the actual things that we can lift and change? Do you think that white allies will be willing to do that?
Give up the seat? No. Bring another seat to the table? Yes.
Okay.
And I think there are a couple of things there. One, if I give up my seat, I gotta pay my mortgage, right? Like if I give up my seat, if I give up my job, I like when it comes down to when it comes down to my most important job is as a father, right? So I can't just like dip out and not pay my bills. That being said, so do I have to give up my seat at the table? Not necessarily. Do I need to ensure that there's another seat at the table? Yes. Do I need to ensure that maybe my seat isn't as big and that my decision making isn't the final one? Absolutely. But I think it's not necessarily wrong, but I think it's futile to say like you need to give up your seat. I think what needs to happen is we need to have greater access into the boardroom, more chairs at the table, and then a decision-making process by which it's not just like the same good old boys opinion.
That's good. No, that's good. And I thank you guys for following. This is a part of my flow. I want to get solutions out here, right? In a non-threatening way, where, a lot of the assumptions that people make about the work that we're doing can be, dispelled. And so people can really get some strategies to walk away and say, hey, okay, this isn't my role. Like, I should not be doing this. This is what my allies should be doing. These are perspectives on how we build power. And so I wanted that to be a part of the conversation, because we don't always have, this opportunity to have this type of conversation. And so I definitely wanted Zach to speak to that so that we could, get that out there. So I appreciate you, man, for being transparent and honest.
But to swing it back, I think that, we talk about solutions and having these conversations to where allies, particularly white allies, can dig deeper is, to have those multiple platforms in which we have conversation. And so when we talk about going back to like the journalistic activism, banning that voice so that, it's not able or is unable to reach different groups is an issue. And so what avenues can we take, or what solutions can we take to ensure that not only are we not, excluding voices or suppressing voices, but that these messages are getting to our so-called allies or people who, may be able to be swayed from their traditional stance of, well, we don't need this in this space, and this is political, and this is, this isn't conservative, all those things. What solutions or methods can we come up with to ensure that people's voices are represented on all media platforms and that they're actually getting through to the people that really need to hear it?
I don't know about getting more voices out there, but what I think is important, again, speaking from the white perspective, is that very often, and I think about Dr. Fuller, like there's a tendency for white folks who want to help to like swoop in, right? Swoop into communities that are not theirs, not listen and change stuff. And the thing that I'm starting to realize is that, we live in a segregated nation, right? Folks generally live with folks who look like them. And I think what I'm starting to really understand is that the work needs to be done everywhere, but not just in those communities. Like I'm thinking about like a lot of so-called allies live in areas that are like predominantly white, and they think the issues are elsewhere. But that's not true, right? The issues are here. The issues are everywhere. So the idea of like let's say if I live outside of Philly, if I'm only diving into Philly to do the work there, I'm ignoring all the injustices in my backyard. So I feel like where a lot of rubber can hit the road is for white allies to do some introspection. Introspection not only into themselves, into their own families, but into their small communities, right? Look at, and there's data to be found. Go look at your disciplinary data at your local high school. Are there disparities? There probably are. What are you going to do to address those disciplinary disparities? Look into your own local school board. Is there any representation of color on the school board? If not, that's a problem. Look at the AP, like who's enrolled in the honors AP track. Is it all white kids? That's a problem, right? So it's not just about going into the other areas and helping those kids, right? Or those communities, because frankly, they don't need your help, right? It's about saying what's going on in this really nice, perhaps suburban neighborhood that I moved to. Where's the injustice here that can be rooted out? Because that's where the real work is,
That's good. So I would, I just wanted to throw this in right quick, Tanisha, to your question. I think that we need, allies who have positions of power and influence to help, hold these media companies accountable to uplifting, voices that are actually sharing the stories. Like we have a lot of small, nonprofits, a lot of small media companies that are sharing the stories of teachers and students and youth and, elders and, people whose stories that we don't see in mainstream media. And I think that, all of these media companies are creating these foundations like, left and right. Okay, well, these foundations, their job, digital directors should be seeking us out. I want to go back to something that Zach said, like they should be seeking us out. And it's not that hard because everyone is starting to do different networking and connecting in different ways. And so they need to better tap into that and they need to be seeking us out. I feel like we are, now let me throw us in the mix. We are out here. So they need to be seeking us.
And one thing I wanted to add, y'all, well, it may be adding and switching gears a little bit. Going back to something you said earlier, Jason, about access and about, making sure there's a seat at the table. And I ain't gonna be messy, y'all. I ain't gonna be messy. I'm just not, a messy type of person. I got saved a couple of weeks ago. And when I got saved, I threw the messiness away. Yes, God's good. I got saved. I got baptized for the 11th time. So there's a former colleague of ours, right? And when we talk about access, there's a former colleague of ours. And, admittedly, this colleague shocked the shit out of me because when we worked together, she appeared as an ally, right? And now that she's no longer part of our organization, she's on the complete, like, not even on the other side of the fence, like she all the way in the other state on the other side of the fence. And so recently she was on Fox News on Tucker Carlson's show, talking about how basically there should be no activism in classrooms. There should be no critical race theory taught in classrooms. And so from my perspective, if, as a white mom, if you feel that way and you don't want activism in the classroom, but you're also not presenting solutions or recommendations or suggestions around what should be taught, you're no longer an ally, you're an opportunist. And, you're really trying to hold on to your privilege and, protect this image of white supremacy. But more than that, when we talk about how you can share the platform and give access, if you're really an ally, that would have been a perfect opportunity to maybe bring someone on, an activist that you would have known, an activist that you've known, or someone that, a parent, whoever, to say, hey, I support this. And here are the suggestions that I have. I think that, there was an opportunity to create space for that. So what do y'all think when we talk about access and we have these people that claim to be allies, and even, when we find that they're not allies, they're still like, well, I'm still down for this. How do we correct them and the bullshit that they're putting out, but also take advantage of the resources that they have, because again, that could have been a space for someone who does the activism, who has recommendations around how race relations and history should be taught in school. That could have been a space for them. So what do y'all think about that? If y'all want to say the person's name, y'all can be, I ain't gonna say y'all can be messy, y'all can do it, but let's get into that conversation.
Well, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
I'll take my lead from Tanisha and not get messy, even though I probably will at some point. To me, not much changed, actually, because the focus was always what was best for her, in her mind, for her children. And that was school choice then, which led to alignment. But now, in her mind, what is in the best interests of her kids is not so-called indoctrination. The funniest thing, I read a piece of hers in Newsweek, and it said something to the effect of, I can't imagine a school system that bullied and dictated and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, really? I can think of an education system. It's called the American education system for 200 years. That's exactly what we have, right? So to me, there's not a flip. What there is saying what's best for my kids now is actually what's, she's falling for the bait of what CRT is. She's falling for the bait of white fear. So there isn't a flip. It's just still what's best, perceived best for her kids, right? It was school choice, so she was aligned, and now it's whiteness, so she's not. To me, what's really upsetting, and I saw the split screen with her on Tucker Carlson. I didn't have to hear anything she said, because you are the company you keep. Woo. And if you are on a split screen with Tucker Carlson, that's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. It was, and I posted something, and I kept it simple. I was like, this is disappointing and disheartening. And in many ways, it is so much more devastating and hurtful to a movement for this kind of stuff than the guy in the hood. Because the guy in the hood, with the white hood, tells you what he is. Tells you what he is. But the other person who is aligned, and then as soon as whiteness is threatened, leaves, that's violence. Like that's real violence. So I feel very angry about that, and but not surprised.
Well, I wanted to just bring us to the book of white fragility today. I'll be coming from page 60, and I have to take a different angle because I'm not shocked. I actually felt like, wow, what took so long? I never considered Erica to be an ally ever. And for me, it's spiritual because I knew her role was to be a protector of what has been. And people like that are the people who caused my grandfather to be burned alive in our home in North Carolina. So it's spiritual for me because spiritually I never connected with you because I saw you for what you are, because those are prayers of my great grandmothers that would be revealed so that it would not happen to me, because they knew that even today I would still be an activist and I would still be lifting my voice to make change in whatever realm I choose to dwell in, which just so happens to be education. So, Erica's words and her position, it never changed for me. She was always that. I was just waiting for her timing to figure out, when are you going to make your move? Because as a protector, I know that you're coming in to infiltrate. And for me, when I heard her interview, we all know this. We all know this to be true. And if you don't, if you're not into, having to brand yourself and market yourself and do all these things. Yeah, I learned a lot from our digital team. So shout out to them. And also shout out that we probably want to, clean up that education post page and, people who are supporters and, all of that, they may need to, be cleaned off. But I want to draw it back to this point that I always knew the role that she was going to play and waiting for her to play it. And in the very first minute, the very first 30 seconds, which most people know that you're going to get the most clicks and most people are tuning in, he said it and then she repeated it, that the problem is activism. So now you made us the problem, because all they're going to hear is activism is the problem, not, all of this fluff that she was talking about. It was a waste of 2 minutes, and whatever change it was a waste of time. But in that time, she made her play, because they're going to say, well, oh, she was working with them, so she knows that that's the real problem, that's really what is going to happen. So, I'm not giving her anything. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Or like my great grandmama would say, I'm calling the devil out for what it is. And that's what it is. And so if people want to go and waste their time to hear that, I'm telling you, she basically, the work that is going to help change where we are with the National Parent Union, shout out to this shirt that I have on, the Black Wall Street Times, the work that Tanisha and her people are doing in Chicago, from Zach and the family in Philly, from the work that Atlanta is doing, to all of the other people who are connected to us. She discredited us after she cried on people's shoulders. And, oh, let me call you, and, oh, let me support you, and let me help you get this cross post, because, see, I just want to call it out so people will know that you have to be mindful of anyone. I don't care what color they are. Red, yellow, black, white, green, purple, orange. You need to be mindful of that character trait and see when people are coming in to infiltrate your work and destroy you in the process. So that's it.
Ooh.
It's in this book on page 60. She did her job. And so now we need to be mindful of that and know that when we see these people trying to get into Black-led organizations or minority-led organizations or organizations that are based on equity, I'm telling y'all what the book says. It says to call them out and have them removed out of their place. That's all. I hope it blesses somebody.
First,
let me
gather my wig. Let me gather my wig and my pearls. Let me get my pearls under here, because I just want to, first of all, point out the fact that Jason gives no fucks. I don't know if y'all caught that in that moment, but Jason gives no fucks. He will go from holy to hood. Y'all know every once in a while I call him Deacon Allen. Today he just went OG Allen, and he called out. Can't be mad at that. And for those of you who are wondering about the interview and the link and stuff like that, we just don't want to promote those types of conversations. Even though we're talking about it, we just don't want to give it views, because a lot of times these people are out for attention. And that's why I called them earlier, instead of allies, they're opportunities, because they switch up on us just to, get attention. But before Zach, before we go to what you said, I just want to point out the hypocrisy in what he's doing, right? Because when you talk about banning activism in classrooms and banning activism in media, that's exactly what you're doing. You're on all these platforms. You're on Newsweek. You're on Fox News talking about how all these white parents are reaching out to you, talking about they don't want these kids learning stuff, and how you're trying to basically organize these white parents to one day, I predict that this is going to become legislation, which it already has in other states. Mm-hmm. That's hypocritical. Are you not doing activism? The same activism that you don't want. So it's like activism is okay when it comes from some people, when it comes from people that look like you, that uphold your standards and your privilege. But when it's activism around liberation, you don't want to hear it. It's indoctrination. I just want to point that out. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I'm coming back after Zach.
Her beef isn't with activism. Her beef is with non-whiteness, right? That's what her beef is with, right? So her activism works for when it works for what she wants, but when it's not for what she, and it's not just her, it's the whole movement. But when activism is for that which they disagree with, it is now dirty word activism, right? So that's where that is. The thing that really is, again, Jason's right, not surprising, but hurtful and violent is two things. One, it's an interesting juxtaposition between the access that Black Wall Street Times was not granted, right, and the access that was granted for a national platform to Erica, right? So like right there, that's what privilege looks like, right? That's what that looks like. The other thing that's really hurtful is that we were all in Montgomery together, and I walked through the lynching memorial with her.
Yes.
And had those moments with her and read all of the details of the families and all these people who had been murdered, and read Toni Morrison's words of Baby Suggs, right? Did all that with her. But the thing is, she may not be physically hurting someone, but she's continuing that work.
Mm-hmm.
She's continuing the work of the memorial, but she doesn't see it. She doesn't see that by advocating to erase CRT, for advocating for all of this, it's the same mission. It's different tactics, but it's the same mission, which is the preservation of the whiteness of America, so-called whiteness of America. That's what her work is now. She is not putting a rope around somebody's neck, but she's doing the work. It's the same. It's the same mission. So I just can't with it. So that's the difference between. Well, I mean, I struggle with the term ally, right? Because I think about Bettina Love and how an ally is a noun, but an anti-racist is a verb, right? Like, so what are you doing, right? What are you doing? And so whenever I try to do work, and my work is not to, my work, the more I think about it, is really for other white people. Like, so here's what we need to do. And it really is about action. It's really about action. Hearts and minds are wonderful things, and that's great. And hopefully you learn to be a good person in kindergarten. But like, here's actual policy change that can actually do things. And that's where I think the work has to come from. But I hope that folks like Erica at least have the courtesy to name what it is that they're doing and name what they're trying to preserve, which is whiteness, and what they are afraid of, which is a de-whitening of America. At least have the courage to own it.
Oh yeah, but I mean, we know they won't, and it's okay. I want to go back to the book. So I'm in chapter 6 now. This is page 89. Now, what I really want to focus on is between pages 90 through 96. Anyone who may have the book, or if you're taking notes, this is probably the teacher in me, which is why I love teaching so much, right? You just get to share information. It's exciting. You'll definitely see where I'm coming from. This chapter talks about anti-Blackness. And so, in my inbox, several people have reached out to me in regards to a post that I commented on that she wrote. And, I basically was like, we're not the enemy here. And it's amazing how you have been on these stages and platforms, right? So this may be some piping tea, but you've been on several people's platforms. And now you have taken members of their audience, because I know these buzzwords, right? Like, I remember strong conversations about, I've won this award, and I'm noted to do this, and I'm noted to do that. Like, you're just so wonderful, right?
For me,
yeah, so wonderful. I love that. So I'm just sitting in the background. I'm just listening, like, oh, let me just listen to all this wonderfulness. Like, I just love when people talk about themselves like this. And she loves buzzwords. And so when I looked at the recent articles and the interview, and I was like, these buzzwords, she's talking about me, but she's not even speaking to me. And we are really thinking that she's speaking to, the white moms who are sitting at home and are listening to her. It's like, oh, she is journalism gold. Yes, girl, go. Like, that's not even really who she's speaking to. The saddest thing that really bothered me is that those conservatives and those families who were really supporting school choice, that were listening to Sharif, right? Because there's people in my inbox too, ma'am. Like, the people that she targeted in our colleagues and our friends' networks that took money out of their movement. Because now you have these people swayed and thinking that, oh, you know what? These ideas are too radical. And look at what it's going to do. It's going to change our children's development. Buzzword. It's going to make them become different. Buzzword. So she wasn't speaking to us. She was speaking to those families who would be and are allies to our work, but now have been persuaded by her work and her words to infiltrate our systems. And so that's the ultimate damage. It's not what she's saying so badly about us. It's also the financial damage that she has done to people's movements. So I just wanted to put that out there about those buzzwords that we did pick up, man. We're not slow. I just wanted to put that out there.
Because the thing is, in the moment, right now, in this moment, it's critical race theory, right? That's the boogeyman, that's the bugaboo.
Yep.
But it's not. That's not what it's about, right? Like,
right.
It used to be migrant caravans, right? It used to be the border, right? Now it's CRT. It was NBA athletes who didn't just shut up and dribble, right? It's all the target is going to change, but that's not what the source of the fear is, right? And this is where I really like Isabel Wilkerson's book Cast, because it really taps into like what is that fear, right? Those buzzwords that are meant to kind of like create that fear response so that we all bind together by we all by but so white people like bind together, like that fear is that loss of caste, right? Is that loss of position. And for me, when I think about my own continuing, never-ending anti-racist work, the thing is that's kind of pathetic is that when folks are afraid to find their complicity in these systems, what they don't understand is that there is actual liberation in seeing how you are complicit. I no longer have to front like I'm perfect. I don't have to pretend that I don't have racist tendencies. I am raised in America. I cannot help this. I can choose to learn and grow and try to raise two anti-racist young boys. I can do all of that work. But there's this fear, right? And actually, Jason, you mentioned white fragility, right? She calls it like the good bad binary, right? Like if I am raised on MLK's I Have a Dream, and I know that to be racist is to be bad, well then by definition, I cannot be racist because I am good. But the thing is, when you get trapped in that, you are limiting yourself. I actually have been liberated by the truth that I am complicit because I don't have to pretend. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to pretend to be perfect. I don't have to pretend that I don't have problem areas, that I don't have areas of hypocrisy. I do. And I do the work to try to undo those to the best of my ability. And I inevitably come up short. But there is liberation in acknowledging that. Beverly Tatum's like the image of the walkway, right? America's systemic racism is going to move you forward. So you can't sit this one out, right? If you sit it out, you're still going to be moved forward toward racism. You have to walk backwards, and it's going to be slow and it's going to be problematic. But that's where liberation is, not just for all, but for that sense of guilt that white people love, that we love to feel. Like if you want to actually get rid of that, admit it and just do the work.
Shit, I think that's a word. Like,
yeah, it is. That was good. Just do the work.
Yeah. But I would say, Zach. So to kind of bring this conversation full circle, because we like to talk about solutions. How do you do the work as a white person? Because what frustrates Black people sometimes is when white people, instead of going to just like you can ask Alexa, you can ask Siri, whoever, you can ask Google, you can go on Google. They'll come to a Black person real quick and say, well, how do I be an ally or a co-conspirator or something like that? And when you can do the research and you can do the self-work. So how does a white person particularly do the work to get to this place of liberation where they can be an authentic co-conspirator?
I'm thinking of a meme. It's like, when racism gets hard, white people pick up books. But that is a place to start, though. It is a place to start, right? So start with white fragility, like start with stamped, like start there, right? But then don't stop there. And I think that is the thing, because a lot of people read, it's like, I read that book, I did the book club, I'm good, right? And then they stop. But the thing is, where I think there are two things, two areas that I would push other people. One, have the conversation with your neighbors when you accept, like when they say something problematic and you usually shut up, don't shut up, right? So for me, when they say like, oh, those are good schools, because you hear that all the time, right? My job, what I do is like, what's that mean? What's good school mean? And just keep asking the question. What does that mean? What's good school mean? Because inevitably they don't know, or they'll just say, I feel comfortable there because it's white and wealthy. All right, cool. At least we got there. The other thing I would say is like, have the conversations right with the family and the friends, like be uncomfortable, but then dive into the data of your neighborhood. Dive into the data of your district. The data's there. It's public. Dive into it. Find the issues that exist and be the change. I live in a tiny ass town, right? 14,000 people. This is not going to make the news. This is not going to shake the world. But in this little town where everyone's got Black Lives Matter signs out front, just like me, we have disciplinary disparities by race and by disability in our one high school and one middle school. That is an area to change. That's an area to change. And if this district changes, and then that district and that district, then you have a county that changes, and then you have work. I don't need to go into Camden and swoop in and help people who don't need saving. I don't need to go into Philly and swoop in to save people that don't need saving. What I need to do is ensure that the people who live in this so-called progressive town do the work to match the rhetoric. That's what
I like that.
Jay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I would add, especially onto the school piece and having worked in family and community engagement, specifically for, white families that are moving into historically Black communities. You need to go to the schools. Like, don't just, we also know that if you go to, ask Alexa, go to Google, all that jazz, like, everything is not going to be the best representation of our communities. And it's not going to be the best representation of our story. So go for yourself. Go into school and say, hey, I just want to see what's going on. And then be bold enough to ask the questions. Like, I saw online that it said your reading, data is bad. What is the problem? Because it'll be different if you are asking, well, what is the problem? And you will get a different answer as to how they just give parents the cookie cutter, well, this is what it is. And your child has had this going on for years. If they see you as a new community member coming in, it may have some school leaders say it's resources. Unfortunately, our school district can't afford this. So, if people want to see increased reading scores, we need this program. You may have one school leader that says, what? The early learning centers are not even teaching the basics. So when they get to us, they're already behind. So if somebody could support them, that would help us, because my teachers here are great. Do you see? Look at their degrees and stuff on this wall. Look at the training that I'm performing. We good over here. We're doing it, but we can't do what we need to do and lift the, younger kids who aren't getting the early learning development that's needed. And then you figure out the best way for you to get involved. And I think that people need to explore that as well, because we know that we don't have good information out here about Black and brown schools and children. And, we know what the data says. So I just think that that's something that my neighbors have done, and it has helped them, and it has helped them to encourage other people to do that same thing. And so far it's been working.
The only thing that worries me about that, Jason, is, the podcast series, Nice White Parents. I worry about white parents coming in saying, what's the issue? Hearing the issue and be like, you know what? I don't think that's the issue. I think this is the issue. And then they use their resources and their power to change things.
Change what doesn't need to be fixed.
And all of a sudden that school isn't for the community anymore. What needs to, like, the policies need to be changed so that it doesn't matter where the school is. It's fully resourced. It doesn't matter who goes to the school. It's fully resourced, right? I worry about the white people coming in and helping things because it still centers whiteness. It still says that where the white kids go, the quality education is. And a school that doesn't have a single white kid in it can and often is incredible, right? That HBCUs, incredible, right? So we don't need white kids in a school for it to be a great school. We need the resources allocated in a way so that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or how much your house is worth. You have a fully funded education, period.
I love that.
That's a word. Well, we got a couple of more seconds left, y'all. Just if y'all have any more thoughts that y'all want to close with, then, go ahead and the floor is yours. Otherwise, we go head out. Zach, Jason, y'all got any closing thoughts?
Well, I do, but Zach was like, yeah, just thank you.
Yeah, just thank you for having me. This is so fun. And just such an honor because you all do such awesome work and I'm just humbled to be here. So thank you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zach for being on. Thanks. I wish Neo was here. We could have talked up a little more of what's happening in Tulsa and the surrounding areas. But of course, I'm gonna uplift the Atlanta Student Coalition. They have 2 town halls this week, both at 6 o'clock on Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, it'll be only them, leading conversations around, what parents could have done better during the pandemic to really help bring families together and really help, repair some of the relationships with them. And they'll be talking about money. They'll be challenging the status quo. Our white allies, our Black families that have privilege, what are we doing to change policies? What are we really doing to fix these issues? And then on Thursday, they'll be addressing the district attorney, Daniel Blackman, who ran for the public service commissioner seat for the state of Georgia, and also a political strategist and someone who definitely helps infuse nonviolent tactics for armed forces to use. And we'll have a police officer on, which is pretty dope because we do not have a lot of forums that are led by students, bringing together DAs, those with legal backgrounds, and those who are actually police officers on the ground to really address how we can improve racial violence. That's something that they definitely want to see change. So tune in on Atlanta, and that's it.
And I'll say one more thing, and then I'll be out. So the idea of like, how do you find the data? So I just dropped it in the private chat. I think it'll get put on the Facebook chat as well. It's called the Civil Rights Data Collection. It's super easy. Just you plug in a school or a district and you get data. Now, this data is usually from 2016-17 because the commission was stopped under the DeVos administration, but it is a place to start. So it's a great way to see not just enrollment composition, but also who takes what classes, who is getting suspended, who is getting expelled. So if you want to, I really believe in micro activism. Like if you want to do the work and change some stuff, start with the data in your local school or district.
That's great. Thanks, Zach. I'm sending it to my students right now.
All right, y'all. With that, we about to head out. I know that we started talking about they don't want to hear the truth and how they're trying to suppress journalistic activism, but y'all know what it is when y'all come to TDRS. You think you're going to Olive Garden and you get Old Country Buffet. We gonna give you everything we got in our spirit on the Mondays. So with that, y'all be blessed.
Yes.
Go out and do the work, and we'll check y'all out next